Hey, how you doing? John Bonsignor talking politics. And you notice right across from me is my good friend Randall Wallace. You're wondering what happened to Paul Gable. He's off today. And we have Randall substituting. Thank you very much, Randall.
Well, I appreciate it.
And today our guest is the Honorable Cam Crawford, County Council, District 6. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
And now we're going to take this break. We'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, Randall, thank you very much for coming by to take pinch hit and last second notice.
Well, I'm thrilled to do it.
I really appreciate it, Randall. I know your book. We've talked about your book. My wife said I interrupted you too many times. You wanted to hear from you on the book rather than from me. And there's your book right there.
Yes, sir.
How's it doing, by the way, before we get into camp?
You know, we're out there. I was hoping to be able to get out and you know, talk it up a little
Why
bit.
don't you pick it up so people can see it?
With the, I was hoping
We've
to
had
get
it on
out.
so many times that people were familiar with it already.
But, you know, I was hoping to get out and do some, you know, book readings and talk to the library and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, with the coronavirus like it has been, you know, that's kind of kept that down. But we're still online trying to do that.
We want to thank Cam for coming by. Cam, thank you very much. I know you have the first question for him. So let's throw it to you, and then I'll intercede later.
Well, I know Cam really well, and I tell people, I don't know whether people realize that Cam actually started out working for Henry Brown, who was our congressman for a long time. He was Congressman Brown's aide, and a lot of people don't realize just how much work Cam did for constituents when Henry was there. And Henry used to have that old saying about being a workhorse instead of a show horse. And I've been telling people for a long time that Cam does a lot of work. That you're not out there, you know, like some of these folks showboating. You're actually getting stuff done. And one of the things I was talking to you about was the flooding situation that has gone on here in Saukesty for so long. And you know, while you were out helping the constituents, I know y'all had some days where y'all were getting out supplies to people and all that. At the same time, his house was flooded in Saukesty. You know.
Well, let me just first say I'm honored to be included in your book. I really, yeah. So that
well, Heather's in
really
there too.
Appreciate that.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a very difficult situation. Those were tough times. So we had about almost 3 feet of water in our house. We were displaced for about 10 months, and but we were able to get through that. I think we came back stronger, and you know, I think that sometimes when you go through that, it gives you a different perspective on it when you actually experience something like that. And there is a emotional component to it. It is it's very draining mentally and emotionally, and you know, my heart really goes out to people that were victims of the flood, and that's why it's really important that we don't just talk, that we actually begin the process, actually start really making a difference. And so
tell us about what you've been doing. What did you do during that time?
So one of the things, you know, that when we were going through the flood, you know, I worked very hard. For instance, we put together a really nice program at Saukesty High School where we brought together different entities from the county, state, and federal. We had a big informational session there to really help answer a lot of these questions that residents had about the flooding, about the nature of it. And so, but that kind of leads into kind of where do we go from here?
You did have hearings. Did you have hearings about FEMA, you and your wife and other representatives that had the Saukesty High School, as I recall, and you were giving out the information, and you were hearing from the people themselves, because I know you have a great deal of compassion for the people. That's what makes you outstanding, because you really feel for the people. And by having these meetings, you brought it to them, and this way telling them exactly what you had done to help them. So not only did you, I'm not going to be promoting you as a person that's going to tout you. I'm just telling you I know personally as a civic activist what you have been doing, and which has been outstanding. So now, from your perspective, how did you help? What did you do? And what were results?
Because y'all had an event at the Cooper's house too. Cooper House too, didn't you?
We did. We did. It was basically a relief effort for people that were. It was a chance for them to come and get supplies and that sort of thing. Who suffered as a result of the flood. But from all of that, in addition to working with the South Carolina Floodwater Commission and looking at the flood mitigation study that the county performed, some of the things that are coming out of this, some of the, I guess, solutions, real solutions for people. Number one is relocation. As you know, the county is working to secure some money from HUD to help relocate people out of some of these vulnerable areas. And I think, and if you look at the recommendations from the South Carolina Floodwater Commission and our flood mitigation study, one of the most important components of that is relocation. So how do we do that? Through HUD funding. That's one way to move people out of those areas. And then of course, something else that I've been working on with our legislators was Senate Bill 259. That was the revolving fund bill. That's passed the Senate, that's in the House. And what that would do is that would create a revolving fund where, for instance, if we were getting FEMA money, which is competitive in nature, it's competitive. When you get FEMA money, they do relocation at 75% of the assessed value of the home prior to the flood. So what this bill at the state level does is it addresses that 25% that's absent. So one of the reasons I was working with our legislators to try to get that through was because this was a way to help make buyouts whole in the future. So we had the 75% there. We could then go to this fund and capture the other 25%. And I thought that was really important for flood victims. So I've been working really hard on that.
So that gets them out of the whole deal at 100%.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Randall, we're going to take this short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Warning signs. Throughout our lives, we learn their importance and what they mean. Flashing lights alert you of construction on the highway. A loud siren lets you know about a fire drill in your office. Cell phones can even inform you when bad weather is headed your way. However, a lot of people aren't familiar with the warning signs for the fourth leading cause of death in the United States: stroke. A stroke can happen in a moment's notice, so it's important to detect the warning signs. If you spot facial drooping, sudden arm weakening, or trouble speaking, like slurred speech, then it's time to call 911. These signs can come on suddenly, so get help immediately if you identify any of these signs in yourself or someone around you. The longer a stroke goes unnoticed, the more damage is done. That's why it is important to act fast. To learn more signs and symptoms of stroke, go to the American Heart Association at strokeassociation.org.
Okay, we're back. John Bonsignor, Thank you again, Randall. I can't thank you too much for pinch hitting today. At
Well, always
last
welcome.
minute, Randall came by, and they were talking to Cam Crawford, who's the county council for District Number 6 that covers Socastee and what other areas did you cover?
Forest Brook, half of
Forest
Forest
Brook.
Brook and a small portion of Burgess.
Okay, Randall, next question.
Well, I mean,
Hey, Randall, wake up, Randall.
we're talking about flooding
How
and all the
about your
different
book?
things that he's been doing in Socastee. And you
Right.
were,
Well, and so one of the things I think that we can do in the future that would help mitigate flooding, something that we could do at the local level, would be, and I've been talking about this, and I think that council needs to really take a look at this, particularly the Infrastructure and Regulation Committee. But we need to address the smaller developments, 10 lots and less. Currently, there are no stormwater requirements for those developments. And moving into the future, as we see more and more of those developments emerge, this would really help to address localized flash flooding. And so, I would just encourage my other council members to really look at that in the future. I think that's probably something that we need to address sooner rather than later.
We want to switch gears now to talk about the coronavirus, but before we do that, let me go mention it. You had some, I think you had mentioned to me some time ago about your plan of planting more trees that would help the soil and absorb the water. You're looking into that. Are you still looking into
Right.
that?
So currently, planning and zoning, they're looking at, they put together a package that I think
I mean, you're doing this. You're the one that pushed it, right?
Well, that they are working on it, and I am promoting it.
I know you pushed it. Okay, let's talk about the coronavirus now. Thank you very much for what you're doing. That's very essential. A lot of people
Let me
are
finish.
looking at that.
I think you had another point, didn't you?
Well, I think what this plan will call for is more open space, greater open space in new developments, and also what it does is it incentivizes developers
But there's so much to talk about with.
to create
You-
more open space
well,
and to plant
But
street
how,
trees.
you're very on top of this. That's what I'm trying to bring out, because he's very on top of this. He was telling me how many gallons a tree absorbs from the ground, and so he's on top of these things. And I just want to bring it across. Because many people are not aware of what are the problems that we're experiencing with floods and so forth, and he's on top of it. That's what my question was. But however, I know you wanted to ask some questions about the coronavirus,
Well, I mean-
don't ask me, what is it, Randall?
Well, no, I mean, I was kind of interested in this thing about the development because
We want to go to coronavirus.
no, because the thing about the 10 house and smaller developments, that's actually something that is kind of falling through the cracks. And I mean, everybody's always doing these big developments.
Well, that's what I thought.
So if you're 10 lots and less, there are no stormwater requirements. So I think that's something that we need to address, and we're going to see more and more of those emerge in the future. So as we move forward, that's probably something that we really need to address.
But I think you're pushing it. That's the important,
Yes.
essential
Well,
thing. You're pushing it. That's the point I'm making. And not to be obnoxious, because my wife says I'm obnoxious at times. I'm not only obnoxious. So Randall is my friend. So if I jump on him, please bear with me.
I'm smiling.
You had
All right.
4 questions you wanted to ask, not about my shaving, about the coronavirus insofar as what the county is doing. So what is the first
Well, I mean,
4
I just-
questions?
4 of them. I was just kind of curious about where we were at. I knew that county. This is something kind of I was in office for almost 20 years. We never dealt with anything remotely like this. I was telling somebody OpCon 2 for us was we're about to evacuate because of a hurricane, but you guys have got a real
Right.
deal.
So this is sort of uncharted territory for a lot of us, for local, state, and federal. Managing a pandemic, as you might guess is not the easiest thing. It's very different from a hurricane, because you can track a hurricane, you can determine where it's going to hit, and then you can put together a relief effort afterwards to help people who've been injured during that event. This is a little different because of transmission. So we have to take that into account. As you're aware, the governor closed the bars and restaurants and opened them up. Well, they can still do curbside pickup and drive-through, but we are working very diligently to effectively address the issue. We want to create the least amount of pain we can, but we do have to be cognizant of, again, transmission. This disease is very, very contagious. It can remain dormant on surfaces for a prolonged period of time. If you can touch a surface, then touch your face, your nose, your mouth, and you can easily be infected. And there's even some studies now that suggest that it can leave someone with permanent lung damage. So, and I know our seniors are very susceptible to this. So, I think that it's important that we remain diligent. We stay at home as much as we can, limit our travel, so that we can protect the public. And part of that's just being a good neighbor.
Have you recommended anything to the county that you feel that should be addressed insofar as the virus is concerned, you personally, what you've done, together with the other council members? Because you're not meeting now, right?
Right.
I'm sure you're showing a leadership role by saying, look, we should do this, that, and the other thing.
Right. Well, I think that, particularly for our seniors, the best thing they can do is remain at home. If you need food or medicine, it's probably best to have someone pick that up for you. Coordinate something with them where they can leave it with you. You want to make sure you wash your hands. Me personally, I wash my hands at least once an hour. And just, again, limit your interaction with others. Try to keep 6 feet of distance if you can, and just really just try to stay at home for the next few weeks until we can kind of get a better handle on this whole situation.
What about hand sanitizers? Those are the things that are
essential.
So hard to get.
They just need to make sure they have 60% alcohol.
Oh, wow.
So,
Well, you can't get alcohol in the stores. I tried.
no, the sanitizer itself.
Yes.
Well, the sanitizer is 60% alcohol. You said.
Right.
That's like the rubbing
That's
out
what it
where you
needs
can't
to
even
be.
get that.
That's what it needs to be to,
Well, yeah,
to
but-
effectively
But
disinfect.
aren't you doing something? I understand you're doing. What? It's a commercial?
Yes,
Randall's
sir.
watching the commercial. I'm talking. All right, interrupting my thought.
And there's some thoughts about
As usual. Okay, Randall. That's what I love about you, Randall.
Oh, I just have to see it.
So nicely. We're going to have another 1-minute break. I think it's 1 minute, Jay. I'm not sure. For these commercials, and they're very important. So listen to them and obey what they have to say. We'll be right back with Cam Crawford.
Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses, named for their shape, protruding spikes that look like a crown or a corona. SARS and MERS are part of the coronavirus family, as well as viruses that cause the common cold. The 2019 novel coronavirus was officially named COVID-19 on February 11th by the World Health Organization. Suspected community spread was first reported in the United States on February 26th, with no known links to people who've traveled to Wuhan, China. WHO said on February 27th that COVID-19 has pandemic potential.
This virus does not respect borders.
COVID-19 can cause flu-like symptoms that range from mild to severe, including cough, fever, and shortness of breath. Since the infection can include symptoms similar to pneumonia, influenza, and the common cold, only a diagnostic test can confirm whether or not an individual is positive for the virus. Thousands of people have died around the world. The first deaths in the United States occurred on February 26th. There are trials underway for treatments, but vaccines are still in the development phase and likely more than a year away. CDC officials say that Americans should prepare for major disruptions to their daily routines. Recommendations to reduce the risk of infection include regular hand washing, covering mouth and nose when coughing and sneezing, avoiding close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness such as coughing and sneezing, avoiding touching your face, disinfecting frequently touched objects and surfaces, using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water aren't available. If you're sick, stay home. If you're experiencing severe symptoms or are worried that you've contracted the virus, call your doctor before going in.
Important messages, the public service messages in which we announced today that you should adhere to. Now listen to what they said and be advised accordingly and take good precaution of yourself, because as we sit here, we're not touching one another, we're taking precautions. Right, Randall?
Yes, sir. Trying to stay on top of it.
Question number 2 for Cam.
Well, we talked now about the virus and all that, but I know when at the end of my time on the city council, we were having a lot of issues that had to do with public safety and the police and fire departments and all that. And I didn't know where things were going in the county now. I imagine you guys have been working on
Right.
some things. I know you personally were really involved with trying to get pay raises for them
Right.
to get them competitive with around the country.
So last year I worked really hard to try to come up with something that really worked for our public safety division, police and fire. And so one of the things that I think is most important as we move forward in the future is we really need to adopt a pay scale for public safety, where we take into account their longevity of service and their rank, and where they can be compensated based on those things, along with cost of living. So we got the ball rolling on that last year. I made a motion at one of the council meetings that we do a study to examine how we might implement a pay scale in the future. And so it is a kind of a large undertaking, and there's a lot involved there. But we sort of took the first steps last year, and what we did was we did a 4.4% increase, and that could really be considered more of a cost of living increase. What they found is that the merit system that we were using there was a deficit there in the merit system as we compared to other counties in and around the area. So there was about 4.4% difference. So we compensated all of our employees for that, and then also for our public safety, what we did was we did a $500 pay increase for every year they served, up to 10 years.
Does the pay increase also have anything to do with health insurance? Remember years ago that they pulled a lot of the health insurance. The county took away a lot of their health insurance, and the employees are really upset about that. Have you done anything with health insurance?
So one thing at a time. I've really been focused on this pay scale, but after we get that sorted out, what I would like to do in order to make our department more competitive and help us retain our
employees,
our police force, fire, we really need to look at some kind of medical package for particularly our public safety when they retire. I know the city of Myrtle Beach, they do they have $100,000 there that you can use for medical expenses once you retire. And so I'm looking at some different options there, but what we really need to do first is figure out a way, how can we best retain our good employees? And I think the key to that is a pay scale. And so we took the first steps with public safety last year when we did a $500 per year up to 10 years longevity pay. And so that's a big component of a pay scale. And so in the future, what I would encourage council to look at is either implementing a pay scale or at least coming back and doing.
But you're going to be looking at health plans. That's important as well.
Yeah.
Because money is good, but you have to pay for health insurance. It's going to take that increase away. But I think I heard from what you said, you're going to be looking into it. Is that correct?
Right. So
okay, that's the important thing.
So I am looking into some options there. And again, those types of things just make us more competitive in a very competitive environment.
That's right.
But this pay scale, I believe, is paramount, really. That will help us retain our employees, and it is a more effective motivational model, in my opinion, than a merit system. Because what we had an issue with wage compression.
We had that in the city too.
And so a merit system by itself can exacerbate wage compression. But a pay scale will correct wage compression. So that's what I would like to see us move into. We actually suspended the merit system because it is problematic, in my opinion, if you leave it out there by itself. So what I would like to see us do in the future is work toward implementing a pay scale for public safety, gradually phase in the other divisions of the county, and maybe even prior to that, do a pay increase similar to the longevity, but base it on rank. So $500 per rank. Say, in terms of the police, from say PFC to captain, $500, or we can go all the way to chief, $500 per rank, and let that raise be permanent like the longevity raises were. And again, that will just help you retain more people. It actually helps with recruitment. You'll be able, I think it'll be easier to recruit more people, and you'll just have, in my opinion, I think if you implement a pay scale, you'll just have a happier workforce. So that's what I think.
People know that you're pushing for it. That's important.
Right, and
that is essential. They know that you're pushing for it. They're going to be happy knowing that a guy like you gets things done when he puts his mind to it.
And so for a larger county like Oree, for instance, Greenville County, they have a pay scale. For larger counties like Oree, Charleston, Greenville, Richland, Lexington, Spartanburg, correct. Oree County is the 4th largest county in the state in terms of population. This model works better for larger counties, and it works better because it rewards people. See, a merit system does not take into account longevity and rank. This system does, and those are two very important components.
I hate to interrupt you,
And
but
it does keep you from having that problem in your middle rank.
We only have about a minute left, so let's leave that minute to Cam. Cam, you're on for the next minute. What do you want to tell the people? Look at that camera right there and tell the people.
So it's been an honor to represent the people in District 6, and probably two of the most important things we've touched on today would be relocation, moving people out of the vulnerable areas, and I think also for our public safety, again, working toward implementing a pay scale in the future. And I think there are other infrastructure issues out there, like the diversion canal. I was happy to author that resolution, and I think working to move those types of projects forward is imperative.
He's such a modest guy, and we covered so much, and there's so much more to cover that we didn't really get into, because I know you're chomping at the bit now to tell us about Ride 3. Before I go, here he goes, the big guy, Randall Wallace.
No, I was just going to say, even before he was a county councilman, working for Henry Brown, Henry Brown had, and you knew Congressman Brown.
Oh, yeah, I know, of course.
Yeah, but Congressman had the best record for constituent service in Horry County, and the guy that was behind the scenes doing it all was Cam.
Well, since you mentioned Henry Brown, I'll just leave you with a quote from Mr. Brown, and he would always say, "We're not here to make headlines. We're here to help people." And so that's something that I have taken with me.
You took also the workhorse. You took that phrase that he had. He was a workhorse, and that's what you exactly are doing. A person that's a workhorse. Maybe not discovered yet, but you're a workhorse.
Well, people are important, and so that's where your focus needs to be.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you.